So when navigating the realm of human relationships, sometimes we can run into situations where someone may be trying to manipulate us or use power or coercion to get us to do something that they want us to do or see something in a way that they wish we would see it. And sometimes in relationships, we may even ourselves fall into these sorts of methodologies where we're using power and coercion and manipulation through a few different methods. So what we're going to do in this video is look at how that happens, why that happens, and how it really is not a very solid foundation and a really intelligent basis for relationships. And this is important because many human relationships are based on these sorts of agreements. Many situations which people find themselves in that somehow blow up or don't go the right way are based on these various sorts of foundations. So to really avoid that and to mitigate that and really prevent that from happening as much as we can, we need to look at these principles. Also, it helps us to bring more love and compassion, not only in our own lives, but also into our relationships. Because when we understand these things, we start to operate on more principles of harmony, meaning within ourselves, principles of harmony with the cosmos at large, and obviously with that other person. So that's exactly what we're going to learn about and discuss in this video. So first, what do we mean by trying to use power or coercion or some form of manipulation to try to control someone else? Well, usually that plays out with, using guilt or flattery or shame or attacking that person's, perceived self-image or whatever self-image you have of them, or, ultimatums, or using fear, or really these sorts of weird emotional triggers that people have that they then try to use to get other people to try to do things that they want them to do. Yet, starting off with that as a methodology is kind of odd because having to resort to something like that is already implying an imbalance. It's already implying and indicating an ill intent or some form of manipulation or coercion or some form of taking advantage of one person over the other. And it really points out a real lack of harmony, meaning a lack of operating on principles of harmony. Principles of harmony meaning two complementary aspects being naturally attracted to each other because they're complementary. Also, it points out a lack of faith and trust in really being completely out of touch with the feeling of a situation. And usually the mindset that goes along with this, which indicates this whole mindset, is I have to make this happen or else it won't happen. I have to make this happen using these A, B, C, D, E, F, G methodologies to make this happen. I have to find this angle, find the right angle, or find the right little combination of things to say or do to this person to get them to do what I want them to do. And this is common in, dating and relationships where men or women try to calculate, what should I do to get them to do this? Men, what should I say or how should I act to get them to me to be able to sleep with them? Or women have their permutations, and the list just goes on and on and on. But really, these principles that we're talking about here are important to look at, because if we don't look at them, we may just keep operating out of them, or worse, we may just fall victim to them when other people bring it at us. So implicit with this mindset and this behavior of trying to be manipulative is the intuitive feeling and understanding that it's really not a good fit to begin with. Because if it were a good fit, then all of these methodologies wouldn't have to be exercised, meaning it would just naturally fall into place and you wouldn't need all of these methodologies. Meaning there's many different ways, for example, to meet someone, to meet a mate or a partner. So a lot of the popular methodologies are, you gotta go out and date, or you gotta go out and put yourself out there, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you gotta go on all these dates, blah 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 blah. But usually what happens is that's all very contrived. Meaning people walk into it with this mindset of A, B, C, D, and on and on and on and on. And that usually requires a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of stress, a lot of mental attention. And then you're thinking about, well, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I wear this? Should I wear that? Should we go here? Should we go there? and on and on and on and on and on, all of this stuff is just consuming us and taking us away from the whole point, which is what? Oh, let me relate to this person. Let me be in the moment with this person. Let me get to know this person. Let me see if we're a good fit. But the flip side is when you meet someone and you just naturally see each other, and you naturally connect, and you say, oh, this is a good fit, all of the other stuff falls into place. You don't have to think about it. You really don't have to worry about it. It's not a big deal. You just say, oh, you want to go do something? Sure, let's go do it. Rather than, oh, well, should I call? Should I text? How should I ask? Should we go here? Should we go there? When should we do it? Blah, 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 blah. Instead, you say, oh, let's go do this. Let's get together. Awesome. Sounds great. Boom. Two complementary aspects were attracted together nearly effortlessly, which is the contrast to the whole methodology we're talking about. But getting back to the point of trying to use power and manipulation and coercion and emotionally manipulate people in relationships, is that when we're going into a situation like this, or we're in the middle of a situation that is sort of being controlled by these dynamics, what happens is we ignore the obvious fact that the situation or interaction is at that point. Meaning, if we're at a point in a relationship where we have to use all of this crap to even interact or do anything in the relationship, we should probably get present, take a step back and say, wow, it's at this point. And what's going on? Maybe this isn't really such a good fit after all. Maybe it's really just disharmonious for both people. And if people will just tune into their feelings, oftentimes disharmony and lack of peace will be found, which is indicative. But you miss that when we're all caught up in all of this head manipulation crap that people get caught up in. So this also is ignoring the point that it's not easy, it's not smooth, it's not comfortable, it's not harmonious, and it's not mutually respectful. Because those all are options, and those all can be foundations for relationships. And relating to a person in such a way, meaning trying to be manipulative or coercive or use emotional fear, guilt, blame, and shame, and musts and ought tos and shoulds and should nots and ultimatums and all of these things, basically just builds resentment on both parties, which is usually why down the road there's a big explosion, there's a big thing, or there's, all of this up, back and forth and all over the place. Oh, now we're together, now we're breaking up. Now we're together, now we're breaking up. Or, oh, I love you, now I hate you. Oh, I love you, now I hate you. All of this crap all over the place, because maybe that original basis was weak. Maybe that original basis had all of this resentment built into it. Because at that point, we should ask ourselves, how is resentment and manipulation really a solid basis for relating to another person? How is it really a solid basis for relating to ourselves? And how is using guilt, fear, flattery, blame, shame, ultimatums, shoulds, should nots, ought tos, all of that crap, how is that a solid basis for relating? So those are things which should be examined and should be looked at. And we should get present and say, what's really going on here? And ask ourselves the question. And what I'm saying is that, not that you must follow or do what I'm saying, or this is the right way and this is the wrong way. What I'm really saying is, each of us it's up to each of us to choose our own path and decide what's right for us. And say, how does this feel? Does this make sense for me? Does that make sense for me? Do I want to relate in this way, or can I relate in these other ways? And really figure out what really works for me. Because what works for me might not work for you. What works in my relationships might not work in yours, vice versa. But really it comes down to understanding principles, figuring out what's right for us, figuring out where we're at, and contextually putting the pieces together, figuring out for ourselves. This is not some sermon, this is not some God-spoken truth that you have to follow. It's just really, this is what I'm learning, this is what I'm figuring out, this is what came to me, what makes sense, what is helpful, I'm sharing it. I'm a student too, I'm still learning too, just like everyone else. I I just happen to enjoy making videos and happen to find a lot of value in clarifying my thoughts, in writing things down. And I only mention that is because people try to do many of the things that I'm talking about in this video, make up weird little self-images about me, and then try to get me to do X, Y, and Z, or do this for them, or do that for them, or be this, or do that. And none of it really makes sense, because again, it's all based on this power and coercion, and it's not based on harmony, it's not based on being a good fit, not based on mutual respect, mutual sort of intrinsic worth, and mutual exchange of energy. Which again, we should ask ourselves, what do I want? What works for me? What sounds right? What feels right? And what makes sense? So all of that said, I challenge you to think about these things, ask yourself these questions, see what your response is, and have this awareness and this insight when you go out into the world and when you interact with other people and see, is this situation, is this situation what he was talking about? Is that situation what he's talking about? And start to be present and aware of these things and see what happens. See where that awareness or that insight may or may not lead you. So hopefully the video has been helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.